Good evening. I love it. Welcome, everybody, to the 22nd edition of Talk20 Hutch. I'm Carrie Mayu. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Yes. Almost 12 years. I'm Carrie Mayu, and alongside my partners Jackson Swear, Ryan Deal, Greg Wamsley, and the fabulous staff of the Hutchinson Public Library, thank you all for being here. Each Talk20, we like to get a sense for who is in the audience, honoring those who have been along the journey with us these past 12 years, and celebrating those who join us along the way. So this is where we do a little bit of calisthenics. So please stand if you have ever been to the Hutchinson Zoo. Hopefully that's most of you. Yes. Good job, everybody. You're going to learn some cool things about the zoo's history tonight. Please stand if you are a boomeranger, meaning you grew up here, then you left for a little while, and then you moved back. See? Yay, boomerangers. We're going to hear from a boomeranger tonight. Awesome. Please stand if you have checked out a book from the library this year. This library or a different one. Good job, everybody. I'm glad Greg raised his hand too back there. Yay. All right, please stand if you have presented at one of the previous 21 Talk20 Hutches. We usually have a lot of those in the room. Awesome. And then finally, please stand if this is your very first Talk20 Hutch experience. Yay! Awesome. Welcome, everybody. Well, you're in for a treat. We do stream this live. So if you're watching live on Facebook or YouTube, or even after the fact, please say hello in the comments and tell us where you're watching from. But we're so excited all of you are here with us tonight. Here's how we talk about Talk20. Talk20 is not a lecture, but a gathering, an informal exchange of stories and ideas. Talk20 is an experience, a night when you should expect the unexpected. Talk20 is not exclusive, but inclusive. It runs on the idea that everyone has a story to tell. Talk20 is curiosity, open minds, humor, heartbreak, education. Talk20 is what we make it. Tonight, you're going to hear a little bit of everything. Each of our presenters will have 20 slides and only 20 seconds per slide to tell a story. We'll have a brief 10 to 15 minute intermission after the first 5. And I do want to point out by the door, there are a couple of water jugs. So that's your intermission entertainment. Head over there and get some water. And after the event, we hope you'll join us downtown at Sandhills Brewing to continue the conversation sparked by tonight's presentations. Because Talk20 doesn't end with the last presenter. It continues through the connections we make, the conversations we have, the moments months from now when we recall a talk, an image, or a storyteller that stayed with us. So let's get started. Here's Jackson Swear to introduce our first presenter.
Growing up in Hutchinson, Rachel A. Shannon spent countless hours of her childhood exploring and enjoying our hometown Hutchinson Zoo. Now, as a board member for the zoo's supporting organization, the Hutchinson Friends of the Zoo, Rachel has had the pleasure of gaining insights into the unique and rich history of our zoo and just what it takes to ensure the excellent animal welfare, care, and management of the animals under the zoo's care. She looks forward to sharing some of the zoo's wild history, kicking up some nostalgia, and giving an inside peek into some of the things that make our hometown Hutchinson Zoo so special. Please welcome Rachel with lions and otters and bison. Oh my.
Thank you. Let me test really quick. Is this good for placement audio? Okay. Thank you. Okay. Good to go. Okay, so what you see here, and I'm going to apologize in advance. I'm going to talk very fast because there's way too much information to cover and not enough slides. So this is the photo that many of you might recognize from the old entrance to the zoo. This is the entrance that I grew up going into, which is now formerly a parking lot and now our beautiful nature place space and off of our Otters. This is the aerial to the zoo that I really remember as a kid, showing a lot of the exhibits. But our zoo has had a lot of change over the years, and it started as a menagerie of animals and transitioned into a drive-by zoo. And then this is born out of a 1986 project from others in our community that really put forth effort to then make it a zoo that I grew up in. I'm the one on the bottom left over there, and my stepsisters, Sheridan and Jessica, my sister Rebecca, is standing on the turtle that you might have spotted in the aerial before. Rebecca passed away in 2012 at 19 from influenza unexpectedly, but the zoo was one of her favorite places. And so when I was offered the opportunity to join the board and work on bringing things like our spider web back to our nature playscape, and other projects working on all the animals that she loved, it just really brings me closer to her. What I didn't anticipate, though, is through those efforts and working on nature playscape and additional projects that I would meet my now husband, and we would get married in front of the very nature playscape that we kind of helped work on to get built together. And so that's us in front of the Otters, which is really special because Rebecca has a fish on the otter wall. But that project is not even remotely a drop in the bucket of everything going on at the zoo. We well, another shameless plug, but we actually started talking, and I thank this for Norman, our wonderful Bison, as walking down to meet him for the exhibit that the Power family was so gracious to donate Norman to the zoo so that he could be loved by all. And he was not the first bison that was donated to the zoo, believe it or not. The first animal ever owned by the city of Hutchinson was a bison named Abe, who was donated in 1935. This is not Abe. This is from May 20, 2003. I couldn't find a usable picture of Abe, but this shows the bison in a previous exhibit where they could actually access the water. Now you can go around and feed them. This was another animal that was donated to the zoo that is Oscar the lion, who is being held by a former mayor of Hutchinson. And Oscar is very interesting because he was a pretty lonely lion and had some struggles, and a drunk gentleman ended up putting his hand through Oscar's cage. Didn't end well, and the city needed to find a replacement. They tried to get monkeys or other zoos to trade animals. They managed to get 2 Canadian geese from a zoo in Canada. And I think we've returned on our investment, guys. Like, we have a lot more geese now. So, which I just thought was really fun. On that note, 3 days, luckily, before the incident with Oscar, a Hutchinsonian, Connie Voss, who was 9 years old at the time, she formed the Hutchinson Zoo Club to try and bring a real zoo, and she went on the Gary Moore show after she invited him to join her club and talked about Oscar the lion. She also asked about bringing monkeys to the zoo, which not successful at the time, though. We have had monkeys on and off. These are some tamarin monkeys that we used to have at the zoo. We now really focus our efforts on prairies and conservation for prairies. But it's kind of fun to relive some of the animals that were there when I was a kid. Now, for other famous animals at the zoo, this is the most famous cat that you've probably never heard of. His name is Hobbles, and he is in the zoo's library, and he is amazing. If you've ever had the chance to meet Hobbles, you know. But if you Google cat, and I encourage you to just do that later, one of the very first top pictures that you'll see is that picture of Hobbles. So this is Elliot. So I like to think of Hobbles as the back of the house because he's behind the door in the library, and Elliot is now front of house in the gift shop. And he used to be up in the loft, and you might have heard him with his mimicry making all kinds of sounds, but now you can see him make those sounds too, because he has taken over the spot where the black-footed ferret used to be in the gift shop. And that black-footed ferret conservation project is still very well underway now, and will continue on with our other conservation efforts and our rehab efforts, which are 2 things that make our zoo very special in my eyes. And our rehab efforts were further, this is a screech owl from I believe the 1990s, if not early 2000s. I don't have an exact date, but we've had a rehab program for decades and decades. But in 2011, with Cargill's help in building an additional facility, that has expanded even further in one of the premier rehab facilities in our area. Now, I found this to be kind of awesome. One thing, again, we focus on conservation and rehabilitation. We also focus on education. And this is an old model of the amphitheater before it was built. And if you grew up going to the zoo for school field trips like I did, you probably recognize that amphitheater and have seen animals there. But I thought it was really neat to see what the process of building new exhibits looks like and the process along the way, including building models or developing a new strategic plan, this is our current new strategic plan. And this is our plan for the zoo. I encourage you to go on the zoo's website and look at it yourself. There's a lot of exciting things happening. Perhaps one of my favorite things is that we're expanding the train loop for the Prairie Thunder Railroad. That's my grandma and my sister and cousins. And but the Prairie Thunder Railroad has been an intricate and important part of the zoo for a very long time. And to see it continue and expand is really encouraging because while we have a lot of change, it's also nice to see the pieces that still remain constant, like Boo at the Zoo, which has been happening since 1992, and we envision will continue on long term. So even as we continue to grow and change, we hope that we continue to have that same feeling that we've always had and bring that nostalgia back and keep up with it. This is a photo that I happened to take one evening finishing up board duties after hours, and I would just encourage anyone that if you have the opportunity to go to an event in the evening, that you take advantage of it because it is absolutely gorgeous out there, and there's more than just animals to see. It's a really beautiful place, and you never know, maybe you'll end up finding your husband or something along the way. So thank you.
Jan Steen is here to share with us how he went from being a cast iron cookware novice to building a collection. Get ready to learn about some of his favorite pieces and the processes used to restore the rough ones. Here's Jan with Getting Hooked on Cast Iron.
So, unfortunately, I didn't have any relatives passing down cast iron pans through the generations. I love to cook, but I didn't get my first cast iron pan until just several years ago. And this is my first pan. It's a Birdsboro Foundry No. 8 pan that I found at an antique store in Arlington, Kansas. It will make a appearance in this presentation again shortly. This is part of my collection as it is today. It's a mix of cookware from the 1700s through the 2020s. I don't just collect and use these pieces, I also restore them because it's much cheaper to buy a grimy, rusty pan that's in need of some help rather than something that looks pristine. And I'm pretty sure that once you get your first piece of cast iron, you're obligated to get more. These are some of my favorite pieces. This one is a gift from a family member in Texas. It's a Texas-shaped casserole dish. It's made in Colombia, and it's one of the newer models I have. And I think it makes my enchilada casserole look a little more credible. Now, these are my egg pans. They're tiny, yes, but the perfect size for 1 or 2 eggs and the perfect shape, whether you're in the mood for a rectangular Spam and egg sandwich or a round egg and cheese biscuit. And while I use most of my collection indoors, I do have some pieces I take outside for cooking on the grill or in the fire pit out in the back of our house. This Lodge tripod and Dutch oven setup is great for making ham and beans on an autumn day, which is exactly what is happening here. These are some of my favorite pans, but these aren't my favorite pan. This next slide is a spider skillet that came from an estate in northern Massachusetts, and it's dated from about 1750 to 1790. I use it. It wasn't likely a mass-produced piece. There are some irregularities in the handle and the non-uniform bowl of the skillet. The handle and other parts can help you identify the age. The legs and length of the handle were practical for hearths. The legs allowed for coals to be placed underneath, and the handle, which was pretty long, made it easy to place in and move around the hearth. As indoor iron cook stoves increased in popularity in the 1820s and 30s, the legs disappeared and the handles shrunk. Pots and pans without legs were closer to the heat and rested flat on cook surfaces. Shorter handles were less likely to be bumped or crowd other burners. And you can see on the bottom of this skillet the years of soot and carbon buildup and the gate mark where the pan was separated from the mold in the casting process, which helps to identify its age. Now, these muffin pans both looked like the one on the left when I started out with them. I restored the one on the right using electrolysis, which I will eventually do for the other. These are not the easiest to restore due to the multiple cup surfaces, but they're way easier to deal with than those little cast iron cornbread muffin pans that look like ears of corn with individual little kernels. You have to get in there with Q-tips on those. And here it is again, my first pan, right before I restored it. I told you to be back. Its inside was really pretty good, but the outside had some carbon buildup, probably from cooking over wood, coal, or an inefficient gas stove. This pan is estimated to be from the 1920s to 30s and has probably seen a lot. There are really 4 methods I use to restore cast iron. The first is for rust. I place it in a mixture of 50% water, 50% vinegar. I let it rest there for about 30 minutes, rinse and repeat until I get the desired results. If I don't get the desired results, I move on to another method. And my second method is for grime and carbon buildup and some light rust. On a warm sunny day, you can grab a black trash bag and your favorite spray oven cleaner, spray your pan, place it inside the bag and tie it closed, let it rest in the sun all day, take it out, rinse, scrub, and repeat as necessary. And this one is my electrolysis tank. This is a method for rust. It involves a plastic tank, a scrap piece of steel, string, water, washing soda, a plug-in car battery charger, a board, and a rusty pan. The positive clip of the charger goes to the scrap steel and the negative to the pan, which is not fully submerged. Usually this goes in for about 1 to 4 days. And this is the lye bath method. This is for grime and soot and carbon buildup. 1 pound of lye mixed with 5 gallons of water, wearing gloves and eye protection. Submerge the pan for a day, check, rinse, scrape, repeat. I've left one in for about 10 days before to get it where I wanted it to go. I cover this up so pets and people don't get hurt accidentally. And then whatever method you use to restore the pan, washing with soap and water is called for. This cleans off any residue of vinegar or chemicals. It also cleans off any leftover particles of rust or carbon buildup. After washing the pan, I will dry it well, and then the next step is to oil the pan. Each of these methods of restoration will strip what is called the seasoning or the polymerized oil that makes the surface nonstick. You'd think with a name like seasoning, it would be talking about the flavor that it imparts to the food when you're cooking in it, but that's not the case. Oiling, then baking, rebuilds that nonstick seasoning. Once oiled, and I use shortening for this most of the time, wipe as much of it off as you can until you think you've wiped too much away. Place the pan in your oven upside down with a baking sheet underneath. Turn the oven on to 500 degrees, let it come to temperature with the pan inside. Bake for 1 hour, turn off the heat, and let it cool to room temperature. You repeat this oiling, baking, and cooling process 5 times, and you'll be left with a pan that is smooth, non-stick, and easy to care for. This is once again my first pan. The buildup has been cleaned away. After cooking with it, I do a quick wash, turn on the stove top, and heat it up until the water evaporates, and then coat it with a small bit of oil before putting it away. And this, pardon the mess, is my to-do shelf. These are pans in waiting, either given to me, found at garage sales, or antique stores, and they're in various stages of the restoration process. I'll get to them eventually. Maybe keep a few and maybe give a few away because I need to make room for more. And I saved the most controversial piece until the very end. Yes, you can use dish soap when you wash your cast iron. Back before the 1950s, your grandparents were right. Don't wash your cast iron soap because it had high concentrations of lye in it, which would strip away that coating. But today, liquid detergent is much milder, and even the Lodge Cast Iron Company says go ahead and use it. Just don't put it in your dishwasher.
Hutch CC English professor Kelly Clasen is here to discuss her appreciation for children's literature and her aspirations as a children's book author. She will offer a preview of her picture book, Scrappers, which will be published in 2027 by the Little Press. Please welcome Kelly with Writing for Kids, An Author's Journey.
Thank you. Is this good? Okay. All right, Carrie. Okay, so my journey or my story that I'm going to talk about today actually started right here at the Hutchinson Public Library many, many years ago. It was a little bit smaller, maybe not this small, but I was smaller. And you can see that I'm carrying my favorite raccoon book bag where my mom would bring us from the farm every so often, and I would load it up with as many books as I could read. Jumping ahead into college, I was always interested in writing and in fact chose to study literature. My background in academic writing is all in American literature. I did this for many years. If you can read the titles, you can see that probably me and maybe 4 other people were reading these articles over the years. Fast forward again to around 2020, around the COVID era, and I decided, I wanted a new challenge. I want to do something different, something that maybe sparked a little bit more joy and maybe something that more people would read. And that's when I decided, hey, I'm going to write a picture book. It sounds a little bit easier said than done, so I'm going to try to break it down in about 12 stages. The first phase is the phase that one agent calls the lightning in a bottle phase. This is where you think you have the most amazing idea. But really, to have a picture book, it has to truly be lightning in a bottle. It has to be something so unique, so powerful, and doable in only 16 spreads or 32 pages. Once you think you have that lightning in a bottle, the best place to go, again, is right here, the Hutchinson Public Library. Well, I will come check out armloads of picture books. So let's say I want to write about an alpaca. I'm going to check out every book about alpacas, and believe me, there are a lot. And I'm going to look at all these comp titles to see if I truly have a lightning in the bottle idea. Oftentimes I'll write a draft and it's very satisfying. There, I wrote it, it's fabulous. Sometimes it takes a day, might take a week, sometimes it takes several months, but I get it on the page. Inevitably, nobody who writes picture books gets their first draft published. So then comes the next phase, which is, no, it's not. This is not fabulous. In fact, it needs a lot of work. The truth is that it's usually somewhere in between. You have a good idea, the first draft is there, but it needs some work, which brings me to stage 5, and that is where I definitely need to get some more eyes on my work. And so over the last few years, I've been very fortunate to connect with all kinds of children's book writers from across the country. And some of them, like Robin, even live in the UK. These are my critique partners. We have shared folders where we put all of our writing, all of our drafts, all of our pitches, all of our query letters, and I trust them to give me their honest feedback and to help me level up my craft. In addition to sharing all my work with my critique partners, I try to continuously keep learning. So the Kidlit world is very friendly. It's very competitive, but for the most part, everybody wants to see you succeed. And there are all kinds of ways to get involved if you are interested in writing children's literature. And so these are some of the organizations that I've been involved with, that I'm currently involved with. For example, right now, I'm taking a highlights class this summer over novels in verse, which is fun. And then I'm doing a middle grade mentorship through Ink Voices with a middle grade author named Sylvia Liu, whose books you can find right here at the Hutchinson Public Library. Once you have that draft ready to go and your critique partners have signed off on it, or you've gotten some professional feedback, then it's time to revise. And I just wanted to show you how much picture books have changed over the years. That first slide is the first page of Jumanji from 1981. You can see it looks like a short story. It's got the long lines, the quotes, the paragraphing. And then the second one is from a book I checked out last week, and it's more like a lyrical poem. So once you get your book ready to go and you're ready to send it out, then you have to draft what's called a query letter. It's very important because agents are getting about 500 of these per month. You have to hook them, you have to tell them about your book, and you have to tell them about the cook. The cook is you, the writer. If you're lucky, they will write you back. Most of the time they don't. This is what writing looks like most of the time. You're just waiting. You're waiting for them to respond, but most of the time they don't because they just get so many manuscripts, they get so many letters that they just can't respond to everyone. And then while you're waiting for them to respond, most of the time you're just getting rejections. You get used to this. It's nothing personal. If you're very lucky, you get what's called a champagne rejection. And that is where the agent or editor will say something like, I really like this character, or the voice is spot on, but this is something I'd like to see worked on. And that's actually a very good rejection. So once you are used to the rejection, the waiting, you're just going on and on. Every good writer just keeps writing. At any given time, I have 3 or 4 book projects that I'm working on. I'm always writing. I'm always sending stuff out to my critique partners. I'm always trying to come up with those lightning in a bottle ideas so that hopefully, eventually, something like this happens. You send something out and a press, in this case, says, you know what? This is exactly what we want. We're looking to publish one environmental picture book in 2027. We would like to pick up this book, or we would like to buy this book. So that's what happened to me last year with the Little Press. Before I signed with the Little Press, I did have to do some research. I bet you guys can guess where I did that research. Right here at the Hutchinson Public Library. I was able to go to their catalog. I was able to look up all the Little Press books that had already been published, check them out, hold them, look at the quality, and decide, you know, this looks like a great company. This is somebody that I would like to work with. One of the best and most exciting parts of this process for me came a couple months ago when the publisher called and said, hey, we've hired an illustrator. Your illustrator is going to be Brianni Dixon. She lives in the UK, and as you can see here, her art is lovely, but she's also a collage artist. And the picture book that will be coming out is about a little girl who makes a collage out of plastic scraps. So probably my least successful aspect of this process is building my platform, but here it is. If you guys would like to learn more about the book I have coming out or about the writing process, I welcome followers on Instagram, X, or you can look at my website. And lastly, I just want to say thank you for coming. Obviously, I could not do what I love to do if I didn't have all the resources that I have right here at the Hutchinson Public Library. So I want to thank the library staff. Please support your libraries and your local indie bookstores if you're so inclined. And I think that's it. Yeah, thank you.
Lance Paterson, president of the USD 308 Board of Education, will guide us through the journey that launched USD 308 on its current path to seek a bond election in November, asking the tough questions like, why settle when we can soar?
Okay. I'm Lance Paterson, president of the USD 308 Board of Education. I've called Hutchinson home since 2004 when my wife Aubrey and our daughter Sadie and I came to town so I could start working for the Boys and Girls Club. Since 2004, our family has grown by 2 more Salt Hawks, Lydia and Blake. I quickly learned that being a Salt Hawk, what being a Salt Hawk is all about. How do you define a district as large and diverse as USD 308, one that reflects the unique stories, strengths, and needs of every student and staff member? That was the challenge our board embraced in 2023. We arrived at a mission and vision that guide us every day. Our mission, educating and empowering every Salt Hawk for life. Our vision, today's students prepared for tomorrow's world. I'm proud of what we came up with. These aren't just words. They're a promise. The promise is shaped by 4 core values: perseverance, compassion, integrity, and innovation. They reflect who we are, what we believe, and where we're headed. Okay, so now what? Let's put it on the website and move on to the day-to-day business, right? Not exactly. Instead, we asked a bold question. What if? What if we invited the community to dream with us? What if we truly listened, not just to families, but to staff and students, and let their hopes and dreams guide the way? Let them dig deep and look beyond the usual into what it takes to make our students successful. What if we made that path to success clearer, stronger, and more connected? So we did what boards do. We formed a committee. Everything is better by committee. Luckily, we didn't have to start from scratch. The HUSIC committee had been formed during COVID. We built on the strong foundation laid by the HUSIC committee. Their work helped us shape focused, intentional goals for the facilities committee. We stayed future-focused, keeping students and staff at the center. And we brought the conversation to the community, hosting over 30 meetings citywide. I hope you had a chance to participate in one. They were interesting and insightful, allowing us to share what we had learned, but also to get your input into what we might have missed. The feedback was clear. We were on the right track with the right ideas at the right time. 2 priorities rose to the top: strengthen and simplify early learning, and improve the middle school experience, both the transition and the environment. We asked new questions. How can we help students start school ready to learn, grow, and connect? How can we ease the pressure in the middle, reducing transitions and building stronger relationships with students, families, and staff? Curiosity led the way. What we know, right now, early learning is fragmented. 8 separate sites, each with different setups. We liked that students went to their home school, but we realized we had confusion for parents. Where did I go to enroll for pre-K? Was a question we heard a lot. The solution, one dedicated home for early learning. By repurposing HMS 8, we honor the committee's vision and take a meaningful step forward. Then we looked at the middle schools. From Liberty and Sherman to HMS 7 and HMS 8, our middle schools have served us well. But limitations exist. The second solution, a unified middle school, brings grades 6 through 8 together under one roof. It means more connection, more collaboration, and learning spaces designed to help students and staff thrive. It aligns with incredible opportunities already happening at Hutch High. As the committee worked, other projects took shape. The high school was remodeled in 2006, so it didn't need much. The Career Tech Ed Academy is still setting the standard. If you've not taken a tour, you're really missing out. But our elementary buildings were ready for some attention. Each building got a thoughtful plan. Some will receive new gyms, some storm shelters, others will get roof repairs, kitchen upgrades, or HVAC improvements. Staff helped shape these priorities because they know what matters most. Honestly, I thought we have plenty of space. Our enrollment numbers are down. I was wrong. How we educate students has changed. We need to enhance those buildings to meet our needs. Questions remained. What happens to the space 6th graders leave behind? Where will meals be prepared? Which is a vital part since 1 in 5 Reno County kids is food insecure. And how do we reinvest into Don Michael Field to support athletes when we lose fields at 23rd and 7th? There were real conversations about logistics, funding, the price tag kept getting bigger. How do we cut back and still meet our needs? After 15 months of work, the committee shared its final recommendations with the school board in May 2024. The board spent another hour in discussion before voting unanimously to move forward with the bond proposal. We were on our way. Then the landscape shifted. State aid hit a cap and special elections were eliminated. But we didn't start over. We stayed the course, same plan, same priorities, and passed a new resolution 13 months later. The bond will go to a vote on November 4th. Since May, momentum has been building quietly, steadily. You can feel it in the way people talk about the bond, with hope and anticipation. Even though staff are still split between HMS 7 and HMS 8, they're already imagining shared space and traditions. Parents are excited too, hopeful about what a new middle school experience could mean for their kids. When culture, connection, and opportunity align, anything is possible. We've answered the question, why settle? It's not who we are. We don't ask our kids to settle in sports, the arts, or their dreams. So why settle in their learning environments? We've done the hard work, the right work, hours of listening, planning, and problem solving. We've faced the challenge and found the best path forward. Because in USD 308, we don't settle, we soar.
Ron Sylvester has been performing around Hutchinson, Wichita, and across the state of Kansas, bringing his Dad Magic comedy magic show to adults and families. Without fail, he hears one question: how did you get started as a magician? Tonight, Ron will explain his personal journey in one of the world's oldest and most misunderstood performing arts. Here's Ron with Making Magic.
When I was 8 years old, my parents took me to Six Flags over Texas, and in the saloon there was a magician performing, and what he would do is he'd reach up in the air and he'd start making cards appear out of nowhere. And I know, that's what I thought. And so I begged my mom to help me learn how to do this. Well, she took me to the public library, and then I learned the magic number. Every magician in the world knows 793.8. This picture was taken up in that corner. That's where all the magic books are, and if you want to learn how to do magic, 793.8, it's the public library where everybody gets started. I really got into the history of magic, not only learning tricks, but the history, and it dates back to ancient Egypt. This is Medea from ancient Greece. She was a goddess known for magic. Women were actually known and held in high esteem for perceived magical powers for about 1,000 years. Then they turned on them. They started accusing them of witchcraft. It was like, yes, your card's the 3 of clubs. And this like, well, now we have to kill you. In 1584, Reginald Scott wrote The Discovery of Witchcraft. This was the first magic book. He did this because he wanted people to know, look, they're not possessed by the devil. They're just doing tricks. And some of the methods in this book are still being used by magicians today. So then it became kind of an entertainment, a street thing done by con men. I love this picture because while the magician's doing the tricks, the person in the back's picking people's pockets. So thieves, basically. It wasn't until the 19th century that a French magician by the name of Robert Houdin said, a conjurer is an actor playing the part of a magician. He started dressing in tuxedos, formal evening wear, and performing in theaters. And for about a century, magicians would wear formal attire until this guy, Doug Henning, in the 1970s, he became my hero. I read about him in Newsweek. He had a Broadway show, a magician called The Magic Show. And so I wanted to do that, and then this is me at 16. While most kids were working at McDonald's, a friend of mine named Tom and I would market ourselves to schools and nursing homes, and they would pay us to do magic. We marketed ourselves as 2 magicians for the price of 1. Then I went to work. I had kids, but I still kept doing weird stuff. This is me as Professor Snape. A friend of ours owned a bookstore in Wichita and wanted me to be Professor Snape at the Orpheum Theater for a Harry Potter book review. Then in 2011, my wife, Gay, said, hey, why don't you start doing magic again? So I did a show at our church in Wichita at the time. If you'll notice, that's the same rope trick that I was doing when I was 16. Same thing. No matter what you decide to do, or what age you decide to start doing this, I love this Kurt Vonnegut quote. Just practicing an art makes your soul grow, no matter how badly you do it. On the other hand, I don't want to do things badly. When we moved to Hutch, I started, Gay and I started being in community theater. There were 2 plays where we actually played husband and wife in those plays. But that stage experience helped improve my magic. And then 1 year in Talking Tombstones, I actually did a magic show in the cemetery. And that got me to thinking, if I'm going to do this, I might as well make sure I can do it well. And so I started going to magic conventions. Yes, they do have magic conventions. And I met this guy named Mario Machisi. He's also called Mario the Maker Magician. He's currently touring Europe, has done some off-Broadway stuff. He said, when you step on stage, you ought to ask, who are you and what are you doing? And so I created this character, Dad Magic. Who am I? Well, I'm a dad, and I'm doing magic. This is, I hired a director. Gay has worked with me as a director. I hired a marketing person, an artist to do a logo, and then I started kind of doing this, and that led to different kinds of things at the farmers market, in corporate settings, in theaters. I've done Third Thursday, and then recently we did a show in character for the Smallville. It's not about tricks. It's not about being fooled. It's about getting this kind of reaction. And let's see if we can do that tonight. So I want everybody, if you can, to look at the screen and pick out one of the images on the screen, any image, and then you can point to it. You can affix your eyes on it. Then I want you to move to the closest Sand Hills Brewing logo. Be sure you go to the closest, then go to the closest Talk20 logo, and then from that, go to the closest Hutch flag. And keep looking at that Hutch flag that you have landed on. Keep pointing to it, because your mind is going to control the presentation. Do not take your eyes off of that.
All right, we're off to a good start. This brings us to our intermission. We will take a quick break. Reminder that there's some water back there for those of you who would like a little water cooler conversation to get it going. We will return here in about 10 minutes or so, a little more.
My name is Ryan Deal, and I'm very honored to serve as kind of like the host for the second half. Unfortunately, one of our presenters was unable to make it tonight, so it'll be a little bit shorter than what's on the schedule, but fingers crossed in the future. On to our first presentation. Keith Neill is here to share about the Ulster Project, which is committed to develop committed peace builders by fostering understanding and acceptance, working together to build community, respecting others and ourselves, and leading by example in serving others. Please welcome Keith.
I had to do notes because keeping to 20 seconds is a miracle for me. Well, hopefully you can understand the accent. Ulster Project has been a huge part of my life for 50 years now. It helped shape me and a vast number of young people who will be our future leaders and the movers and shakers who will help to bring peace, reconciliation to the world. And this is the Ulster Project story. Northern Ireland in the late 60s and through the 90s was like living in a war zone. The narrative to my childhood and teenage years was filled with murders, bombs, army patrolling the streets in our cities. My childhood was in a divided, frightening community. Over 3,000 people were killed, 50,000 others injured during the 30 years of violence in Northern Ireland. It was the air that we breathed. It was the landscape that we lived our life in. And out of that came the Ulster Project. It was born in 1975, 28 hand-picked young people taken to Manchester, Connecticut for 7.5 weeks to build unity between Catholics and Protestants who might be the leaders and help shape a better future. Northern Ireland has now got a population of 1.811 million. Portadown, where our group comes from, is here. So we're about the same size as Connecticut and Delaware. Portadown, to some extent, is still a divided community. Its population packed into a much smaller area than that of Hutchinson. It's a lovely place. It's a place I call home, even though I've lived here for 12 years, full of lovely people who are trying to break down barriers. And each year, about 100 people, young people, from different schools come together to be in the Ulster Project. They're interviewed to get 12 places. This year, for only 9 places, as we couldn't find enough host families. But our education's divided, and that's one of the issues. So we're trying to develop young change makers. That's the primary purpose of the Ulster Project. Foster peace and reconciliation between Catholic and Protestant teenagers, bringing them to the United States to live with host families during July, promoting tolerance and friendship. The aim is just to break down the barriers. We do that by working together with low ropes course, high ropes course, getting everyone to see that difference is okay, and if you work together, you can achieve many great, great things. We even take part in the 4th of July. Not sure who the gentleman is with the hat, but the kids loved him, and so I had to get their photograph taken with him. This was the first time for many of them walking in a parade like this, and they thoroughly enjoyed it, even though they told me it was too hot. These are 2 of our councillors. One of them's here tonight. The other one's now back home. The group loves spending time at Clay Works, working with their clients, becomes one of the highlights. Our goal is to show them that working with people who are different doesn't mean that you can't have fun. We also, through the 3 weeks, give them a taste of the Midwest, journeying back in time to Cowtown, exploring the depths of Strataga and the vastness of space at the Cosmosphere. And as you can guess, these were not the sort of opportunities they would ever get back in Northern Ireland. In time of discovery, each week we have a 3-hour period where it's designed to make them think and challenge perceptions, with input from Bright House, Horizons Mental Health, give them a glimpse of a side of life that they might not be accustomed to, make them more aware of how they can help and support. More of their highlights in their time in Hutchinson is volunteering with Reigns of Hope, Boys and Girls Club, days spent with TAC clans, which ends with a dinner and dance at the Anchor Inn, which has happened since we came here first in the year 2000. The clients look forward to this every year, and it has been a tremendous time. We also give them a chance to see what goes on in the community. And this is Sarah, who thinks she could be a firefighter. And we thank the fire authorities for opening up their training camp and giving the kids a morning and experience of what it is to be a first responder. Finding space for them to have dialogue and talk to each other is really important. We want to give young people a voice, for them to believe that their opinion matters, their views matter, their insights are very important. We want them to have the confidence to speak up for those who have no voice. Of course, they have 3 weeks of fun. It's an action-packed schedule, not for the faint-hearted. We pack a lot into the 3 weeks: laser tag, bowling, axe throwing, touch putt, paintballing, lake days, pickleball at Chicken and Pickle, pool parties, low ropes course, high ropes course, movie nights, sleepovers, and the list goes on and on. Of course, no project's complete without experience in Pretty Prairie Rodeo. They love to dress up, become cowboys and cowgirls for an evening, even if they haven't a clue what's happening in front of them. But they love it. And this is not the typical night out in Portadown for them. Of course, the project's founded on our faith. Enabling them to experience worship in both Catholic and Protestant churches is important. For Portadown teens, this is usually the first time they've ever been in a worship service of a different faith community, helping to break down the barriers. Northern Ireland today is a very different place than what I grew up in. Today it's a beautiful country, great place to visit, wonderful golf courses. Unfortunately, Rory McIlroy didn't win the Open, but that's okay. But the Ulster project has made a difference in trying to bring peace and reconciliation. It has brought young leaders together who are making a difference today. If you want to help, if you want to sign up, talk to me later. We just need all the sophomores, juniors, and freshmen that we can find. Thank you.
The Pointe School of Dance is celebrating 20 years of business in Hutchinson. Why did Glenda Boor start the Pointe? Isn't it all that she dreamed it would be? What is it like to own a dance studio, and what goes on at the Pointe? Please welcome Glenda with 20 years of dance at the Pointe.
Good evening. My name is Glenda Boor. I'm the owner and founder of the Pointe School of Dance here in Hutchinson. It's hard to believe that what started out as a childhood dream has not only become reality, but it has shaped my family and been embedded into our community. Here I am in my very first dance recital in 1987 with Judy's School of Dance. Growing up as a dancer and then a competitive dancer played a key role in shaping who I am today, my values, my ambitions. I got lots of dance lessons, but more importantly, life lessons. The experiences and memories dance gave me have a very special place in my heart. Here's my mom and some of my favorite dancers growing up. After graduating from Trinity, I went to be the captain of a 51-member dance team at Barton County Community College. From there, I moved to Lawrence and was a dance major at KU. I got engaged, moved home, and was offered the dance team coach for the Buehler High School. So I was planning my wedding and my future. In September of 2006, the first 28 students had their very first dance class at the Pointe School of Dance. We had classes in the gym at the Prosperity Grade School. Classes were 2 nights a week. We built some mirrors on wheels and just started dancing. We gained a few more students and danced September through April, leading to our first annual recital. It was held at Trinity High School. There were 33 dancers, 6 dances, and 1 very pregnant dance teacher. Cadence was born that June and was in tow for year 2 of the Pointe, which included a lot of shuffling around. We started back at Prosperity, but then were moved to the safe room at Prairie Hills Middle School and ended our season in the Pinnacle at the Summit Building. We had 36 dancers and 7 dances. I had no idea what the next few months would bring. The dancers and their families helped me join the Patriots Parade and throw an amazing dance camp. There was so much positive interest, we were ready for a bigger, more stable space. In August of 2008, we toured a space at the mall, and it took some convincing, but they eventually agreed to lease it to me. My family, friends, and dancers helped transport our space. Several of these families are still very active supporters of the Pointe today. As you can see, we leapt big into year 3, from 36 to 130 dancers. This was exciting but humbling at the same time. People believed in me. They were excited about what I had to offer. The dream was coming true. Fast forward a year and meet cutie number 2. There's Kinsley. To celebrate our 5th year, we teamed up for the first time with the Cancer Council of Reno County for Dancing to Make a Difference. We sold t-shirts, had raffles, and more. We themed the recital dances to show support in honor of cancer patients, including this dance, In My Daughter's Eyes. We did that for my mom, who we lost to cancer when I was 20. The next season would bring our first big production number, Let Me Entertain You. There were 41 dancers and 1 huge moving circus tent. The studio continued to grow, and it was time to buy our own place. We had been searching for a while, but in 2014, we found the perfect spot for us, right behind Kohl's at 1303 Wheatland Drive. It was a great location, and the space seems bigger than it looks from the outside. We've been happy there for the past 11 years, averaging around 150 students per season, each one bringing their unique spark and personality and helping to shape our studio. Over the past 2 decades, dance has grown in ways I never imagined. The Pointe has worked hard to create traditions and that bring us together and help our dancers reflect on their accomplishments and show off what they have learned. For example, each dancer gets a pennant with their name on it. For each recital they complete, they earn a star pin for their pennant. We also have several events throughout the season. For the past 5 years, we have had the honor of dancing at the Cancer Council of Reno County's Starlight event. This event teaches our dancers so many valuable lessons about supporting the community, having empathy for others, and using their talents for good and to bring joy to others. Their sweet, caring hearts really shine at Starlight. Next up each year is Halloween week, and boy do the kids love wearing their Halloween costume to class. We do a special Halloween performance for their parents and friends, and then they get to trick or treat around. We finish up each semester with our Christmas performances. For some of them, this is their first time on a big stage. It's a very big and brave step on their way to our annual recital. For us, dance is more than movement. It's confidence, it's discipline. For kids, it's a gateway to so many valuable life skills: teamwork, resilience, emotional release, and performing under pressure. And it's about being a part of something bigger than themselves. When this hard work pays off, there's nothing better than seeing them walk off stage grinning ear to ear because they nailed it. I've had the privilege to experience this feeling for 19 recitals filled with 512 dances and over 4,000 costumes. Every sequin, bow, and bobby pin represents so much growth, pride, and countless memories. Along the way, the kids have given my staff and I more than they will ever realize. Sweet hugs, handmade cards, colorful pictures, and words that melt your heart. Being a dance teacher is very rewarding. The cherry on top really is that I've gotten to share my love of dance with all 3 girls. Yep, meet cutie number 3, Brynlyn. These girls have grown up at the studio. They have danced, apprenticed, taught, and poured their hearts into the place right alongside me. And Clint, my husband, who's had to hear more dance chatter and watch more dance performances than he probably ever imagined or cared to. But he stood by us all. And along with the Pointe, we will be celebrating our 20th year in April as well. There are far too many people to name who have played vital roles in the formation and continuation of the Pointe. Just know that we would not be ready to celebrate our 20th year without your support. So what's next for the Pointe? Well, now that I have a graduated senior, naturally, we needed to add an adult tap class. We will continue to try new things like this and share our love for the community. For some, it is just a fun after-school activity, but for others, it becomes their passion, their safe space, and even their voice.
Books were always a way for Thomas Simmons to escape his own head and the hardships in the real world. The stories with them taught him who he wanted to be when he grew up. Now, after walking his own personal gauntlet, he creates the stories that he hopes someday people will read and gain those same values from. Here's Thomas with Turning Nightmares into Magic.
Go ahead. Okay, so this image is obviously representative of a broken home, which is what I come from. Substance use has been around my family for generations, on one side or the other. Realistically, it's both. My father was abusive to my mother. Both of them used substances, and there was violence in our home. So the conditions were not ideal. We couldn't stay there under those conditions, so my mother left us with her father so that we could remain in the family. I was only a year old at the time, so I don't remember much up to that point, but my grandparents were very religious in a way that would probably be considered strange or even silly to a lot of other people of faith. My brother and I lived with our grandparents until I was about 7 years old and he was 9. During that time, I was threatened with damnation. I was told that I would die of obesity, and we were commonly grounded to our beds, which reflected the story of Ezekiel in the Bible. I needed an escape, so I picked reading where I could. Harry Potter wasn't allowed in our house because it was devil magic, but Tolkien was. In a custody battle, after my mother found recovery, my grandparents told the court that my mother and her new husband were violent, that they mistreated us, they had molested us, all of which was untrue. They told the court that she was still using drugs. They recommended she took a UA, and she agreed to do so as long as my grandfather did too. And when he refused, she was granted custody. So over the years, there was more substances, other abuses, more violence. And I remember watching my mother be threatened, getting into fights with her husband, and having strangers in my home with a gun. I turned to the only safety that I knew. It was books and substances. I read The Hobbit, I read Lord of the Rings, I read Harry Potter, anything that would get me out of the current world, which was too heavy for me to live in. So I didn't escape substance use myself. I had years of destroying relationships, trouble with the law, violence, being homeless, many other hardships. And I didn't have books when I was on the street using trauma to cover trauma. So I told myself stories. And eventually, they started to really take shape. The story that took shape is about two brothers. They're twins, born of a magical people called the Nissa. They're peninsula forest dwellers, the sons of King Gilthor. After many years, humans come to their peninsula and mine the mountains. They hunt in the forest creatures. They cut down their trees. They have no balance for life, and they're disruptive to the Nissa way of life. There's a dark magic on the air, and the Nissa and the humans put aside their differences to work together to defeat the mysterious shadow creatures called the Daedmer. The magical waters of the Nissa give immortality to the humans, casting their souls aside and creating a dark anxiety within them, feeding on the fear of others. Harlow, a giant man, befriends the brothers Gilthag and Garthag and goes with them on a journey to a place called Norwood. Where did I go? To defeat the Daedmer and destroy the magical waters of the Nissa. There they meet another group of Nissa and Orin of Norwood, together routing the Daedmer and destroying their source of power, restoring balance to the northern part of Baelnor Isle. Returning home, they find that their own source of magical waters and their home is besieged. On one side, they have the remainder of the Daedmer, and on the other side, they have the betrayal of the humans who are trying to steal their magic, believing that they can harness the power and not succumb to the dangers of the Nissa waters. King Gilthor is struck down in the battle, and the queen is missing. The forest burns, and the humans who came to the aid of the Nissa are turning, succumbing to the terror of the Daedmer and killing the Nissa. Before his death, King Gilthor crawls to his holy wellspring and utters the words to destroy it, and the Daedmar with it. Using all of his magic, he summons a massive tidal wave to wipe out all of the sieging enemies. The two brothers, Harlow and his two daughters, and a select few Nissa make it to the shore of the hidden sea, with the Daedmar hide on their heels and a tidal wave quickly approaching. In a last-ditch effort to save his children, Harlow leaps from his boat and shoves it out to sea as the Daedmar surround him. And as the tidal wave crushes the kingdom and burns the forest, the survivors watch as all they knew is ripped away. The story ends there, but it's only one in a series that I've already written. It continues with the group landing in the land of the Morkdoi and who have sworn off magic and its corruptible ways, where Harlow's daughters become the main characters going through their own crucibles to discover that the Daedmar were placed in their world by their own deity known as Karaz the Stone. Several kingdoms begin to search for power in the absence of the Nissa on the Isle of Baelnor and the magic that they provided. The group must navigate political waters and mysterious creatures, magical beings which desperately try and stop them from defeating Karaz and taking vengeance for the destroyed home and lost loved ones. This is a metaphor from my own experiences. The balance of the Nissa is the power of recovery. The Daedmar represent trauma and anxiety. The tidal wave is the pain and hardship that one must go through in order to change their life as a whole, and with it, an overarching plot by the world's father, Karaz the Stone, as my own religious trauma. I had to find an escape in order to survive, and I found it in a good story. I related these stories to myself, and in many ways it was the characters who raised me. Those lessons are planted in the story, like equality and balance, resilience, love, acceptance, understanding, and curiosity. Now, 6 years into recovery, I have become a father, and like the character Harlow, I want nothing more than my daughter's safety and happiness, and I hope that my lessons are going to be passed down to her and that other children are going to need them. And I know that other children are going to need them. There's other people out there who need to find a healthy way to escape, and when you find it in a good story, it can change your whole world. I'm working ahead on my journey to become a published author, so the story's not yet published. Even so, writing the story alone has held the power for me to change the way that I view my own history as well as the world around me, while always being able to get lost in my own thoughts in all the best ways. It's kind of my superpower. Another thing that writing the story has given me is the time to slow down and learn to create. I've developed a deep love for maps, and so I have drawn one for every story that I've written. As soon as I begin, and soon I will begin reading these stories to my daughter, who, in this is Baelnor Isle, where the aforementioned story takes place. This Talk 20 comes with a lesson. No matter who you are, what your origin, or where you are right now, you have the power to change that. You have the power to become more and learn to do scary, uncomfortable things, like give a Talk 20. Neil Gaiman once said, "Fairy tales are more than true, not because they tell us that dragons exist, but because they tell us that they can be defeated."
The thought of ever moving from Kansas City back home to Hutchinson was, well, daunting for Matty Mullins. But sometimes the stars align, and you find yourself back in Hutch, kind of loving it. A year in, here's what he's learned and the subtle cosmic nudges that turn this town into a place of unexpected inspiration.
All right, let's do it. I'm Matty. I was born and raised here in Hutch, and in 2008 moved to Kansas City to work as a graphic designer. Built a pottery business, met my wife. We were running ultra marathons, and we started a family, and we had quite a stellar life in Kansas City. And moving to Hutchinson was never, ever a thought. But sometimes life happens fast, things come up, and all of a sudden my wife looks at me and says, "I never thought I would say this, but I think we need to move to Hutch." And my jaw dropped. And she explained, yeah, we needed to be closer to family. We needed to slow down. So my philosophy is always listen to women in your life. It's a really good one. And we were planning and talking about starting over and what was important. And other than the kids, we wanted to be able to find a community, and we wanted to be able to make an impact. Just a little one, not a big one. So yeah, I said cosmic nudges. Spiritually, I'm a mashup. I believe a bunch of different things, but I know one truth, and that's just listen. My wife is very intuitive. She's a medium, and she says there are no coincidences, and I'm really believing that now. And we had a lot of signs and happenstances, and only a couple can fit in here. So yeah, back to it, the big nudge. We were driving down to look at this house. I could smell my grandpa in the car. That was weird. But I was like, okay, we'll just keep going. So we were in the backyard after looking at the house, and my wife sees a feather on the ground. And we were literally talking, is this a good idea? The feathers are what let us know we're on the right path. That's just been the sign in our family. So yeah, we packed up July 11th, moved down, gave the kids the tour of the town. We did the rodeo. We've been to the sand hills, did the fair, all of the fun Hutch stuff. And we were having a lot of fun. We do miss Kansas City, but this is the only traffic jam I've been in, and this was taken last week. And now I know where these geese came from, so that comes full circle. So yeah, there's things like this that just bring me a smile to my face. Like, yeah, this is a Hutch moment. I make pottery. It's my side hustle. It's what I do for therapy. And then it turned into a job, kind of. So I realized that after unpacking and doing landscaping that I had a commission coming up, a really big one for the Trailhawks in Lawrence. I make their race awards for their ultra marathons. My kiln was broken, and I didn't have a way to fire my pots. So I went up to Kylie at Lit Studios and said, hey, I'm Matty. I'm in a pickle. Can I rent a kiln? And she was like, no. Well, maybe. She goes, you sound like you know what you're talking about and you're not a weirdo. So maybe, would you like to teach classes here? And I said, yes, absolutely. That just took me out of left field, and we started teaching classes in February, and it's been a blast. We've gone from a beginner class to having an intermediate class. They're month-long. Now there's a membership for studio time, and I've met so many awesome people. Here we are doing a 5-minute throwdown. The thing about pottery is it's literally grounding. You're playing with dirt, and it's a meditative state, and it's humbling, very humbling. But it also builds a great community. And we've had students start teaching each other things, which has been fantastic. We're building a cool little community. And Amy would want me to point out, this is her urn. She's going to be buried, or that's where her ashes are going to go. So she's really proud of that. But we've made a lot of cool stuff and had a lot of fun. And none of this would have happened had my kiln not been broken. Here's a segue so I can catch my breath. My wife's been trying to befriend this crow that lives right around our house. And I've learned something about Hutchinson crows. They only eat trash out of Sonic bags. I don't know if it's like the chili corn dogs or something. I don't know what it is. But anyways, I was out walking, and this is a terrible visual joke, but I was playing Pokemon Go, and I saw this guy playing Frisbee literally right across the street. And my inner golden retriever, this is my other nudge, told me, hey, go and talk to this guy. He's like, hey, you want to go play catch? It's like, absolutely, because he's throwing by himself. Who does that? So turns out Rashawn invited me to play ultimate Frisbee with him and a bunch of guys 5:30 in the morning on that next Wednesday. I said, fine. If you don't know what ultimate Frisbee is, it's throwing a Frisbee, and it's like soccer and football and basketball. It's a very spirited game, and there's a lot of high fives, but I've met a lot of really cool people, like faith leaders. We've got coaches and teachers, and it was a group of guys that I didn't know, I could make friends. It's hard to make friends when you're in your 40s. So it's been great, and here's my endorsement. I lost 18 pounds. It's a good time. So, but the nudge there that I didn't realize until later was Rashawn, who was playing by himself, was a pastor at the First Baptist Church. That's where my great-grandma went to church. And clearly she was looking out and said, you need to make some friends. And also it helped with my creative block too, because I don't do freelance graphic design, but Rashawn's like, we might start an Ultimate League. You want to make a logo? And I was like, okay, deal. So that's, a few of the little nudges and how much I've been surprised about Hutchinson. There's a lot of really awesome people here and a lot of people that have really inspired me. And there's people in this crowd that I've met or reconnected with that have really made me want to have a bigger and bigger impact wherever I can find it. And I just want to tell you guys, thank you.
Okay, so Matty and I were in the same class growing up in Hutchinson Public Schools. Go Salthawks, yeah, Morgan. So let's give everyone that presented another round of applause. Thank you all so much. I would be clapping too, except now I have Claire on my hip. Again, thank you all for being here. I want to do a shout out. Oh no, my other child just fell downstairs. That's how much things have changed in the last 12 years. I have born 3 children that now run the place. Okay, just a second. Okay. I always want to thank our support crew, Lucas Singleton on the video, Christopher Acker running the live streams, Greg and his team, of course, turning on and off the lights and putting up all of the chairs and breaking them all down tonight and putting everything back. It's a team effort, Talk20 every time. And so we look forward to being back here in January 2026. What do you want to say, Claire?
It was so fun.
It was so fun. Yeah, it was so fun. If you want to continue the conversations tonight, of course, go over to Sandhills Brewing. There's no formal organization over there, just kind of find each other and sit down and keep talking. Other than that, if you ever have an idea for who should tell a story, or if you yourself feel called to get up here, I promise it's a good time. Please just reach out to us anytime via the Talk20 Hutch Facebook page or website, and we'd love to connect with you. So thank you all. Have a great night.